Hey, Allie here, your friendly neighborhood business lawyer, chatting with you about the 4 big things that we want all of our creative small business owner clients to do to make sure they're protecting themselves from liability. So those 4 things are: 1, forming a limited liability entity; 2, buying appropriate insurance; 3, using contracts to protect your business; and 4, acting reasonably. Let's dive into each of those 4 items, starting with forming a limited liability entity. So you probably have heard people talking about how important it is to have an LLC that you use to operate your business. Absolutely. Forming a limited liability entity is a really great and cost-effective way for business owners, especially in states like Colorado, to protect themselves as they operate their business. So here in Colorado, it only costs $50 to start an LLC, and then it costs $10 a year after that to maintain your LLC. LLCs, limited liability entities, like the name suggests, limit the amount of liability exposure that their owners and operators face. Here's the thing about LLCs though. I think a lot of people talk about them as if they're magic. Like this is the one thing that you have to do to make sure that you're protecting yourself as a business owner. And they are great and a really good bang for your buck when it only costs $50 to set one up. But the liability protection that they provide to their owners is really far from complete. So LLCs are awesome when you're thinking about contract liability, when your business is the party to the contract. So a really good example of this is a commercial lease. So if you're renting office space and your landlord lets you sign your lease on behalf of your business instead of on behalf of yourself personally, then your business, if it stops operating, goes bankrupt, if you have to default on your commercial lease, your landlord can only get your business's assets, cannot get your personal assets. So that's great. That's really helpful. It allows us as business owners to operate our business without worrying about things like, will my landlord be able to get my home equity if something goes wrong and I'm not able to pay the rent on my lease? But it doesn't protect you from some of the more expensive risks that you face as a business owner, which is things like, what if I'm working with somebody, for example, I'm a photographer and I'm setting up a light stand and somebody trips on that light stand and they break a couple of bones and they sue me and my business. So a limited liability entity will help you in those lawsuits when the person sues your business. Limited liability entity will not help you in the instances when the person who is hurt sues you personally, and we're all personally responsible for our actions. So what does that mean? Why am I talking about personal versus business liability? What it means is that you need to be aware that even as somebody who operates a limited liability entity, the activities you engage in as a human who's doing work could still subject you to risk if somebody gets hurt. And that is why the second thing I really want each of our clients to do after forming a limited liability entity is buy appropriate insurance, particularly general commercial liability insurance. That's going to be the stuff that's going to protect you when people get hurt visiting your office or when you're providing services to them in person. If you don't provide any in-person services, there are other kinds of insurance policies that could be perhaps more important, like digital media policies, data breach policies. Talk to a commercial insurance broker about your risk that you face and what insurance policies are most effective and important given the risks that exist in your business and industry. That's 1 and 2. Now we're on 3, which is contracts to protect you from liability. Contracts are so critical to limiting your risk exposure as somebody operating a business. Contracts can protect you from dissatisfied clients if you've clearly set out what you provide and don't provide. Contracts can protect you because they explain what remedies a client is entitled to if something goes wrong, and it can limit those remedies, just limiting your risk exposure. You can use liability waivers and indemnification provisions. There are a ton of contract provisions that protect you from financial exposure in your business dealings, and working with an attorney to make sure that you have a contract that's really protective but also sets your client relationships out on the right foot or your other business collaboration relationships out on the right foot, key to making sure that you are protecting yourself from liability as a business owner as much as reasonably is possible. And finally, 4, our item number 4 and our big 4 here is act reasonably. Why do I include act reasonably in this list? It's because I want you to know that as a business owner, your work is not done after you've set up your LLC, purchased your insurance, and got contracts. Every day we make decisions in our business, and every decision we make involves some degree of risk. So acting reasonably means assessing risks and deciding, yep, these are risks worth taking, and no, these are not risks worth taking. So for example, if you're an elopement photographer driving your clients off-roading in your Jeep without consulting with your commercial insurance broker, to me, that is a risk not worth taking because you have people's lives lives and health and safety on the line, and you may not be properly insured. On the other hand, if you are a portrait photographer and you're trying to decide, should I take my clients to this grassy meadow where there could be, rattlesnakes, but I haven't heard of any rattlesnakes lately, but always a risk here on the Front Range. And you decide that you want to take them there and you're going to be careful, but you're going to accept that there is some risk because you're not totally ever safe in life. That might be a reasonable risk. Acting reasonably means that you're taking calculated risks and that you're always acting fully understanding the risks that are facing your business, and you're not letting things surprise you because you're being thoughtful and careful. If you follow those 4 steps, then you are on a really great path to protecting your business from liability to the greatest extent possible, while also understanding that for us to run a business, we have to take risks. We're always going to take risks. So I hope you found that checklist helpful. If you've done 4 of those things, or if 1 through 3 are done and you're aware of your obligation to act reasonably, then I think you're probably off to a good start running a business that legally protects you.